Welcome back to Backward Point Podcast, a podcast about Pakistan versus Australia, a 3-0 whitewash against Pakistan, David Warner's final test series, and much more in the cricketing world. With me, as always, is my brother, my co-host, Bashar Sayed. Bashar, how are you doing today?
Whitewash? Are you serious?
Don't we don't use that term anymore?
I mean, I wasn't expecting a whitewash Pakistan touring Australia.
Oh, is this something that you're surprised about?
I'm very shocked. Taken aback.
Not in your bingo card of 2024?
Still processing. Wow, a Pakistan team going to Australia and not winning a single test.
All I'm saying is there was a moment, day 3, near the end, where Pakistan booked Australia all out for the 290s, or there was a 14-run lead. And at that moment, you cannot tell me that there was a lot of optimism and hope among the Pakistani camp and the Pakistani fans that maybe we'll see it through. So this could have been a 2-1, and it would have been a badge of honor for all the Pakistanis, even though, I think the result that was displayed today was the true representation of what Pakistan was actually about in this series.
Actually, if we're being serious, right? Pakistan almost had a sniff in every single test match.
Even the Perth one?
Even the Perth one, because they dropped Marsh, they dropped
Warner.
If they had taken those catches, if they had just taken the catches this whole series, maybe you could have snuck in one win, right? And we can get into a deep dive of where those matches were, where those moments were. But just for this podcast here, the third test just finished literally a few minutes ago, and we thought we would come on, sit, record, and so show a bit of raw emotions. Typically, we come in with a whole podcast drafted, a template to follow, but I think we felt that it's important to just come, sit, chat, and discuss Pakistan's series, this match in particular, positives. So yeah, let's dive into it.
First question I have for you is overall, it's a feeler question. What did you think about the series?
If I'm being fully transparent, I am shocked that Pakistan did so well, in the sense that friends, family who were asking me what's going to happen this upcoming series, I was saying Pakistan versus Australia, 3-0 whitewash, expect defeats by innings, matches finishing in 2 days, 3 days. So for Pakistan to get 20 wickets of Australia in a match, for Pakistan to unearth a talent like Amir Jamal, for us to look like a good bowling unit, I am taken aback. Yeah.
For the first time, having a lead in a innings since 2010.
Cannot remember when that happened last.
2010.
Exactly. So
Sydney Test, actually.
For this bunch of guys, if you had told me before the series that this squad led by Shan Masood is gonna go out there and there'll be scenarios where Pakistan might or might not be able to win, I would have laughed at you. But I think having the series gone by, having witnessed most of the action ball to ball, I loved how the matches started here, at least the last two at 6:30 p.m. Eastern time. So we were basically watching ball to ball the whole day. And I just loved watching Test cricket, Pakistan team playing in Australia, the highest form of the game with some of the best players in the world in action. We are forgetting that this Australian team, they're world test champions. They have some of the greatest players that Australia has produced with their bowling attack, with their openers. David Warner has retired, but Steve Smith is still there.
The captain.
3600s in test matches. Pat Cummins, that fast bowling trio, plus Nathan Lyon, and then players like Travis Head and Mitch Marsh as well. So, Pakistan, I think, have done well in this series. Obviously, there's room for improvements. I'm not satisfied with the 3-0 loss, obviously. As a Pakistan fan, I want to see Pakistan, similar to India, go to Sena countries, compete, do well, and ultimately win matches. But I think having seen the series, we're quite far behind from that goal. But if we start today, maybe the next tour of Australia in 4 years will come back as a better team.
I think there's a stark contrast in what the expectation is from the Pakistani camp and the Indian camp. We just did an episode about the South Africa versus India series where India was able to draw the series. They won the second test match in a day and a half. There was a whole other scandal, but in the comment section of that podcast, a lot of the Indian fans and the Indian spectators, their expectation was, we're not really satisfied with the draw here. We wanted 2-0. We wanted to win this thing. And yeah, I mean, we won a historic match, and Mohammad Siraj was great, and Bumrah, as always, has been phenomenal. But this isn't a win for us. We will not be holding our heads high tonight. And contrastly, while this was happening, Pakistan had a 14-run lead at the end of inning number 2 yesterday on day 3 of this test match against Australia. And we were like beaming, boasting, being really magnanimous on Twitter and on Instagram, and our Discord chat was blowing up. And, on the live commentary channel on our Discord, everybody was talking about how insane it was going to be. And the Patreon subscribers on Patreon started a thread. It was just like the stark difference between expectations has never been so blatant.
I wanted to actually relate this, what you were saying, so the Pakistanis mindset versus the Indians mindset, and just related back to a psychological concept of the Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Oh my God.
And I think Pakistan is somewhere at the bottom of physiological needs and safety and security.
In the context of cricket.
In the context of cricket, obviously. And our Indian friends have sort of moved up the hierarchy of needs to
self-actualization.
Exactly. So Pakistan is still out there surviving, trying to compete, just get past the days where India, because they've beaten CNI countries at their home
multiple
times, they have that belief. They have the vision, and they have that hunger of beating these teams at their home grounds. So yeah, kudos to them. It just shows. Yeah,
it's also reminiscent of when I used to be in high school or in O levels in Karachi, and I would come out with like a 70, and I'd be like, "Wow, great result for me. Got a high B, or a low B, whatever it was at the time. Happy with my marks." And then I would have a friend who would be like a really good, studious kid, and he'd have like an 89 and be beating himself in the head, like, "Oh shit, I got 89. I was just 1 mark away from an A star." And this is how it feels. Like, I mean, for me, like, being mediocre in studies or average or a little bit above average was just, yeah, I'll take it. I'll pass. And then other kids who had higher expectations that actually worked hard for their grades felt like, an A was injustice to them. And just that contrast as the 2 test matches were happening at the same time just felt like 2 worlds to me. And I was like, wow, this is insane. Like, we're sitting here talking about how actually Pakistan kind of held their own, even though they had a 3-0 whitewash. Just goes to show how far behind we are from world test cricket as the world is playing and how we're playing it.
Yeah, I think you put that pretty well. Looking back at this match in particular, Pakistan won the toss in what looked like a pitch that was more batting friendly. Had we not have lost Abdullah and Saim in the first 10 minutes of the match, horrible, by the way. Abdullah going for a duck, his terrible
Abdullah
series.
going for a pair.
Went for a pair in the match.
One of the worst series. I expected a lot more from him, especially after that first game. He had a 60 in that game.
Yep.
I was like, he's on fire.
Looked promising.
Yeah. And, I don't know.
Dismissed by Stark like, 3-4 times?
Yeah, but the second, the bowl that he got hit, the second innings of this game in Sydney was just unplayable. There's nothing you could have done with it. 145 swinging back in.
That one actually seemed back off the pitch.
Oh my God. Like, you can't, it hit the pitch, it darted back in. There was nothing you could do. And the slow-mo shot showed how slow his reaction time was, just because he wasn't expecting that his bat wasn't even fully like below his waist before he properly was able to defend that. The bat and pat gap was too huge. Middle stump knocked off. And Abdullah just having a horrific series, one to definitely forget, not remember on his roster. How many dropped catches, missed fields, ducks, a pair, and then low scorers all through the series has he had? Is just one of those test matches that I want to forget for him, because I know he's a better player than that and he's a classier player than that. It's just that I think it's gotten to his head when you drop so many games and so many catches, and people go out and score hundreds on your dropped catches. That has to shatter your confidence. If you're a normal human being, you'll be a puddle of water. And Abdullah was less than that. Saim didn't do much in this test match either. He sort of wasn't able to hold his own. He kind of showed glimpses of what he was actually going to be in the second innings, when he actually, sort of cut Stark for 4 and then cut Stark for 6 over backward point, deep backward point. And I was like, wow, where was this guy before? And then, he just gets out on Lions straighter one. So the opening pair, this entire series, having a horrific start. And that didn't really set a tone for what was going to be a mediocre batting stance for Pakistan, because at least in this game, Shan Masood wasn't able to implement his stamp on the game like he was in the previous game, especially in the MCG for the chase. He had a 50 there, a quick 50. He showed intent. I think in both the innings this time around in the SCG, he was just nervous, just fiddling on the fourth and fifth stump, getting out in similar fashions 3 times. First time it was a no ball. Second time seemed like an exact replay. And then the third time, just the first ball of Josh Hazelwood, was it? I believe. Nipped off, didn't do anything to it. I think a lot's, and I stopped deliberately at number 3 because number 4 was Babar Azam, who's had a terrible year, test series. Like I tweeted this from the Backward Point account. I was like, I don't understand what has gotten into him. Like my son, I had to apologize to Mikhail, my son. I was like, son, I'm sorry that I told you about Babar Azam, because ever since Mikhail's been born, and before that actually, he has not scored a century. And my son is 3 months old and crying all the time, as babies do. But I feel like there's a specific tint, a hinge of I don't know, like a fear or just pain that he has, that he's not been able to see Babar's century and that his father lied to him. And one day Mikhail will see this podcast, and I'm just trying to say, this is not the Babar that I was telling him about, and this is not the Babar that Babar told us about. And we can go on and on about what's going on there, but just a horrific top 4 performance for Pakistan throughout.
Yeah, I was talking to a friend of my friends offline, and we were talking about Babar Azam and how we want Babar Azam to show up in World Cups, in Asia Cups, and away tours. What am I supposed to do with Babar Azam being a king of bilaterals, a bilateral bully? But when it comes to multi-nation tournaments, when it comes to performing in South Africa, Australia, England, and test matches, and big moments where we expect Babar Azam, the caliber or the class that he has, for him to show up and just stamp his authority. Babar Azam right now has played 8 test matches in Australia. He averages 25.25, 100 and 150 in the 16 innings he's played, which I think for a player of the alleged class that Babar Azam has, mind you, the word alleged is key. 25 average in Australia definitely will taint his legacy when people look at his stats when he retires. Unless he goes to Australia in 4 years and scores like a couple of double hundreds, this average might just linger around 25, 30, 35 max if he does something insane the next series. But I don't know if it's a mental thing. I don't know if it's a fitness issue. He does look a bit chubbier. I don't know if it's the impact of him losing captaincy, of all the pressure that was around him during the Asia Cup, plus the World Cup, the captaincy being taken away from him, or, for him being forced to resign, to it being split among Shaheen and Shan. I don't know what it is, but it definitely looks like Babar Azam is not at his best. He is putting those odd full balls for a cover drive, but just making for amazing edits for his fans. They love putting those snapshots together and put some motivational music behind it.
I'm a Babar Azam fan, and I'm fed up of that. Like, I don't need a solid 28 that can be put on Instagram Reels so that people can share it. I don't need that. I need him to show up. Like, here's a stat that'll blow your mind off. Top 3 run scorers for this series against Australia. Number 1, Mohammad Rizwan, 48 average, 71 strike rate. Did not play the first test match. Shocker. Number 2, Shan Masood, 30 average, 67 strike rate. Okay. Number 3, Amir Jamal, 29 average, 56 strike rate. Definitely we'll talk about him. Scored 143. Babar is in the top 5 at number 5.
This is for Pakistan?
This is for Pakistan. Only for Pakistan. 4 is Agha Salman with 141. And number 5 is Babar Azam with 126 runs at an average of 21 and a strike rate of 47.
Considering this was his 3rd tour, considering, he's around 29 years old, 28 years old, which is considered the prime of your batting, for Babar to be struggling. And it's just, for me, what pisses me off more is how he's getting out. that same area on the fourth stump, it's either nipping away and it's getting nicked, or it's nipping back in and it's creating a huge gap between his bat and pad. And out of the 6 innings, he's given wickets away to Mitch Marsh in the first match and Travis Head in the last match he played. So, I mean, 2 of your 6 dismissals are against part-timers.
The second game that Pakistan lost against Australia was at the MCG, iconic Boxing Day test. And Pakistan lost by about, 69 or 79 runs. And I attribute that loss specifically to Babar Azam because he was supposed to make those runs. That was a perfect opportunity for him to go big, make a century, make 110, 120 odd, seal the deal. Make a 4th inning century that people will talk about for years to come. And he wasn't able to do that. And he wasn't able to convert. He wasn't able to, he gets a good start every now and then, but he's not able to push forward. I don't know what it is between the 20s and 40s that happens to him. He either overthinks himself or he just takes his focus off, or the eye on the ball is off for a bit, and he just lets the opponent get to him. And that's where my beef with Babar Azam started. The regard that I held Babar at the start of 2023, he has dropped a fair bit of points from there at the start of 2024. And it's going to take a lot of work for Babar, because I am a diehard Babar Azam fan. I think he should have been one of the greatest of all time for Pakistan, definitely, and in the conversation for in modern day cricket. But he's dropped the ball. He's not going to be in the conversation for that. He's not in the Fab 4. He's not in the Fab 5. He needs to hold his own currently, because there's a few more seasons or a few more months of these bad games, another bad World Cup, and there will be questions about Babar's spot in the team. There will be questions about the number 4 spot in Test, 3 in ODIs and openers in T20Is. We don't even know if he's going to open the T20Is in the New Zealand series that is upcoming. But if I had to put money on it, I'd say he plays 3 or 4.
I heard Fakhar Zaman speak in an interview recently where he said that Shaheen's given the instructions that he's going to be playing at number 3 or number 4. So, I mean, does that mean that he's going to continue with the Rizbar opening pair, or does that mean that maybe Babar comes one down, Saim Ayub opens, and Fakhar plays at number 4? And then Iftikhar, Azam Khan, that could be our batting order. But again, Babar's test stats are a bit concerning for me as someone who loves to look at the stats of a Brian Lara, a Yunus Khan, a Virat Kohli, a Steve Smith,
Sachin Tendulkar, Inzam ul Haq.
All these guys average over 50. They have tons of hundreds. Babar's stats right now, his average is 45.8. He has 900s and 2650. There's a big gap between his hundreds and his 50s. And that's showing that this is a player who gets good starts, gets 50s, but he's not able to convert them into big scores. I know Babar Azam was a late bloomer to Test cricket. You know, his first Test century came, I think, in his 21st or 22nd Test match. So he was already behind the 8 ball there. And I think if he really wants to prove himself, he needs to come out the next few series, play some incredible match-winning knocks. Match-winning knocks is the key word here. And Babar can do it. He's done it in the past. And we expect him to regain his form, regain his confidence, because we want to see the same Babar Azam that he's made us so used to. You know, Salman Agha in a press conference mentioned that Babar Azam made us so used to him scoring hundreds in every 3rd, 4th match that him not scoring 50 or 100 in the recent past innings, we're starting to doubt his brilliance. And I would say I'm one of the doubters. And I have to be convinced otherwise by Babar himself.
I think there is a long window before Pakistan plays another Test match. It's 10 months. I think it's October, where either I believe England is coming to Pakistan, but I might be wrong. There's a 2-match series definitely in there somewhere. I was trying to look for it. Was not able to find it on Cricinfo. Bashar, if you could look into that for me when Pakistan is playing their next Test match. But there's a long window, and 2 things can happen in this time. Either Babar will continue losing his focus on Test match cricket, or he'll regain his confidence and come back stronger. And I'm hoping it's the latter. I think in order for him to solidify how big of a talent he is, how big of an inspiration he is, and how important he is for the success of Pakistan cricket, I think he needs to get his head in the game.
Bangladesh is touring Pakistan for 2 tests. in August, September.
Okay. And then after that, I think, is England coming at all, or was that wrong?
England is touring Pakistan in October for 3 tests. So that'll
Yeah.
be the 5 tests that they play
Next year.
this year.
Oh, this
Plus,
year.
and then they're going to South Africa at the end of this year. So that'll be interesting.
So that's also a Boxing Day test series, right? Is it 2 or 3 games?
2 tests, 3 ODIs, and 3 T20s.
Okay, so going to be a big tour at the end of this year. So yeah, that's just me coming out and saying that we need him to succeed in order for Pakistan to succeed. Babar needs to succeed in order for Pakistan team to succeed. And people keep on saying, "Oh, he only plays for his runs. He only plays for his records." And I wish he would, because him playing for his records guarantees Pakistan is in a spot to win. Maybe he may not come out and finish the game, but he'll put Pakistan in a position where there are other players who will do that finisher role and take Pakistan over the line. I think he's not doing that. He hasn't been doing that for a while, and ever since the Asia Cup has started, the decline has started, and either he's gotten A, exposed, or B, just loss of confidence in himself. But something's got to give, and I'm glad that he has some time to think about that, at least in Test match cricket. If he wants to be one of the greats, he has to perform in this format.
Do you think there's an element of Babar being complacent? 2022 was an incredible year for him. He was the ICC Cricketer of the Year. He scored tons of runs in every format. I think 8 centuries across formats. He was the number 1 player in ODIs, number 1 player in T20s, number 3 in Test matches. So he sort of reached the peak of batting. Do you think there's an element of him being like, okay, I've been there, I've reached the top, and like, you know, I'm not really satisfied, or it's just hard for him to sustain being at the top? I mean, players like Virat Kohli, who've sort of dominated the last 12 years of international cricket, that I think for me shows greatness. If you can sustain for that long, and maybe Babar either is complacent, he has lost the hunger to perform and be the best, or he lacks that longevity to sustain at the level.
I hope that's not the case, because in order to be great, as we've learned from the greats, we've seen many of them in this sport and other sports, you have to have the mindset of the killer. If your mindset is, oh, I've seen the heyday and I liked it and I'm okay with where I am now, then you're just going to be another stat that could have been. And I hope that's not the case for Babar. I don't think that's what's happening with him. I feel like he has that mindset of being a killer. He wants to win. He's a winner. He's won a lot of things for Pakistan in the past, and you know, he's trying to prove himself again. I just think, and I genuinely think this, I think there's a psychological block, right? The way that the captaincy was stripped from him, the way that his morale was sort of shot down. You know, the PCB is no gift to a captain. It's actually a very sticky and stringent organization, and you have to sort of navigate your way through those hurdles and perform and lead your team and create chemistry. It's not an easy job, and all of that has to take some sort of mental toll on you. What I've realized of Babar Azam, seeing him in videos, interviews, his brother's YouTube channel, is that he's a very introverted type of a person. And even in his brother's YouTube channel, you'll see him interacting with even his family or his friends, but he's just very subdued. People come to him, he doesn't really go to people. And if that's the case, then somebody has to bring him over, sit him down, have a conversation. I think, you know what? I'll give it a proper invite. Backward Point is ready to do that therapy session with Babar Azam. Babar wants to come on the podcast, discuss whatever's going on with him. I will be keen observers. We're fans, and we know a little thing or two about some therapy. So I think that's exactly what he needs. If he needs someone to sit him down, talk about his demons, talk to his demons, just get that shit out of his head and come back strong.
Yeah, Babar Azam should seek professional mental health.
And there's nothing wrong with that, because we've seen the likes of Virat Kohli taking time off. We've seen the likes of Steve Smith and David Warner were forced to take time off, but it actually really helped their stat, because when they came back, when Steve Smith came back after that 1-year ban from Cricket Australia, he scored a double century at Headingley.
The one thing that I'll tell you is
in both innings, by the way, century in first and century in second innings. So
everybody growing up, if you're a guy in Pakistan, you love cricket, you love playing it, you love watching it, and it's the same for these guys as well. But it's ultimately, when they grow up, they have to pursue cricket professionally. So I wonder sometimes through that professionalism and it being a career for them, if they lose the love of the game, right? I think I can speak for myself when I say that when we were podcasting for like every single day in the World Cup, it sort of felt like a job to me, and I was losing the passion of showing up and speaking about cricket with my brother here. And that 1 week break that we took because I was sick just happened to be a forced break. I came back rejuvenated. I came back energetic. I came back with a different vision. And I think breaks help. Perhaps the PCB offered Babar to take a break in this upcoming series against New Zealand. But also, there's a factor of insecurity in the Pakistan cricket setup, right? And if you think a player like Babar Azam is insecure, that just shows how Pakistan cricket is, right? If let's say Sahib Zada Farhan or Fakhar Zaman or Saim Ayub, if they play the next series, if they score like 100 or a couple of quick 50s, we'll be like, okay, maybe we should move past Babar or have Babar play one down or something of that extent.
It would 100% happen. It would 100% happen. It would definitely be a conversation on this podcast because people would want us to talk about it, even if that's not the case. But I see where you're coming from and I see where you're going with that. But there has to be a time, has to be a point where you have to say, I need to take a breather here. Like I genuinely need to sit this one out. I need to reorganize, refocus. The one thing that we realized when we were going ham during the World Cup time, just going podcast after podcast, is that we realized we need systems, we need routines, we need maybe templates that work so we can come down, make it as easy as possible. That is the same mindset that a player like Babar Azam needs to implement. Okay, maybe I cannot play all the games that I want to play. Maybe I can't play all the leagues I want to play. Maybe I'll have to leave some money on the table right now and focus on something else just to clear your mind. And I think that's the case. If anybody's out there arguing that Babar Azam is technically unsound or cannot play X, Y, Z delivery or does not know how to do this, that, or the other, they're lying to themselves. They're lying to the social media. They're lying to the internet. He is a technically profound batsman. He's a technically aesthetically pleasing batsman. And just, he seems like he has all the time in the world when he's on song. All he needs to be is on song and not miss those keys, not miss those beats in the middle and just refocus and regain himself. That's it.
Amr Jamal was an incredible find for Pakistan this series. And I will keep saying this. If you've been hearing the podcast long enough, I've been advocating for Amr Jamal to get more opportunities. And it was sort of unfair for people like Amr Jamal or any other fast bowling all-rounder in Pakistan. Because if you compare the opportunities they've gotten versus what Rana Fahim Ashraf has gotten, they're not comparable, right? Fahim Ashraf has gotten way too many opportunities. And it was more shocking for me when Amr Jamal was identified. He performed against that one game against England. In Pakistan, he defended about 15-16 the last over against Moeen Ali. At that point, you should have known this guy has pace, he has accuracy, he can sustain pressure at this level. Let's integrate him into other formats, right? And that should have been something that was planned last year by the captain, Babar Azam, or the team management. And it just seems like they missed a trick there. But I'm glad that finally they've come around. Amr Jamal was incredible with the bat, with the ball, and just brought in that extra bit of energy. He seemed like he was a man on a mission, determined, had a point to prove. And it was so fitting in the end where he won the Player of the Match award at Sydney, where he used to once play great cricket and drive an Uber at the same time. And it's a wonderful journey all around. And I feel like Pakistan has unearthed an incredible fast bowling all-rounder. The one thing that I will advise the fans, and we've gotten many messages, they're like, have we found the next Abdul Razak? No. I did a whole podcast, which you can find in our playlist, of Pakistan's search for the next fast bowling all-rounder, the next Abdul Razak. I wouldn't say he's the next Abdul Razak just yet. We have an issue of comparing people at the initial stages of their career with greats. Look back at Saim Ayub's first over in the PSL, where Waqar Bhai compared him immediately after one boundary to Brian Lara and Sayyid Anwar. So we got to calm down. We got to let Amr Jamal play more games to continue to prove himself in other formats. But just as things see from the outside right now, terrific find.
I think it's just a shame that Amr Jamal has to come out and perform literally with his heart out, give a performance of a lifetime to be then not subjugated, but then to be included in a rotating roster. Like, okay, yeah, now we'll get Amr Jamal back. This is exactly, you hit the point when you said that the management and the captain dropped the ball with Amr Jamal. When Amr Jamal gave that blistering performance, defended 15 or 16 off England, who then went on to win the World Cup, by the way. When he did that, that should have been massive green flags to the management that this is the guy, we want to invest in him. He should be in every single camp that we have. He should be in every single squad that we have. He should be at least in the 15-man squad, if not in the playing 11. And we should keep investing in him because we've done that with Rana Fahim and it's not happening. And I think, it's a bit short-sighted from the captain and the management. And we got to take the names here because it was Babar Azam's decision not to invest in him. Babar Azam was more keen on going with tried and tested talent in Fahim Ashraf. And he could have gone and built that talent with Amr Jamal. And now he could have been reaping the fruits. Especially in the World Cup that just preceded this series, he could have gone in with a specialist 140 click bowler who is a really good first change with Haris Rauf and him coming in first change. Insane. And a batsman coming at 7 or 8 that could give you a quick 20-30 off 10-15. That's exactly what Pakistan needed.
We got to talk about that part between Amr Jamal and Mir Hamza. We were watching it ball to ball, and
insane.
It's the best thing I've seen this whole series.
Yes.
And that sort of followed by Australia's collapse in the last few overs. For Amr Jamal and Mir Hamza to have that partnership of, what was it, like around 85 or 90? Incredible. Just the way Amr Jamal was conducting his innings, the way he reversed sweeped Nathan Lyon for a 6. Me seeing that sounds shocking, but we watched it with our eyes. And just great character shown. He was pulling the ball. He knew that the Aussie bowlers will come hard at him. They'll be bowling in bouncers. He took a few blows to the body, but he also put the odd ball away. And he looked the Aussies right back in the eyes because they're very famous of scaring you, intimidating you, and then getting you out. But Amr Jamal was a man on a mission. And just great performance with him in the first innings with the ball and then with the bat. And I can't wait to see what he achieves in the next few years.
I hope he's in the Pakistan rotating team for the next 5 to 7 years. You cannot give up on this guy. This guy is a generational talent in what maybe generational talent is a bit too broad. Maybe I'm doing the same thing that Waqar Younis is being accused of. I'll take that back. I'll retract that. Not a generational talent, but definitely a hard worker. And I can say for a fact that those people are few and far between in Pakistan cricket right now. People that genuinely work hard for their runs, for their wickets, for their overs. They put in the miles. They put in the elbow grease. They want to be the best and the best that they can be. And I think that has to go back to the work ethic that, immigrants have when they leave Pakistan, when they come to Canada, America, Australia,
the
UK, wherever, right? You have to have that, I don't want to give up mindset. You got to do the Ubers and you got to chase your dreams and you got to do school and you got to work your part-time job. Like you got to have to do so much stuff. And I think our audience can relate to that because, the stats show that we have a lot of people listening to us from those general areas. And we're from Canada. We've done this ourselves when we were younger in high school and all that. And that grit and that work ethic shows when you're playing cricket. And that's why I have to give it to Shan Masood here as well. Shan Masood was left for dead by the PCB on this tour. And it might be the greatest stroke of luck that the PCB has ever had by assigning Shan Masood the captaincy. I think after Amr Jamal, who has been significant in this tour, I think the number 2 great find that we had in this series was Shan Masood and his captaincy. And his not going to give up attitude and his persistence on at least coming back in the game as much as he can, even though Abdullah Shafiq and Saim Ayub tried their best to dismay their captain, the captain was not dismayed. And that goes to show with his intentful innings. Did he score 250s this series? I believe he scored 2, right? Almost at 60, 70 odd balls, scores a 50, especially in a 4th innings chase with Babar. Like he's out there trying to win this as only he knows how to do. And not only his batting that has sort of set the tone for the other batsmen out there. I think his batting actually unlocked what Rizwan and Amr Jamal were able to do later in the innings and later in the test series. But his captaincy on the field was spectacular. He had moments of brilliance, like multiple times during the series, right off the bat. Steve Smith's wicket in the 3rd innings is just spectacular. Like the way he had that set up, Another one. I think it was Davey Warner in the first game. He had a fielder set up exactly where David Warner hooked the ball or pulled the ball and got out.
I think it was the first match, first innings.
And that's after he had already scored 160 odd.
Yeah.
So that just goes to show, even when at a stage that seemed like Pakistan were completely out of this test match, he made sure that he found a way to get these people back. That being said, I totally do not understand his decision not to bring Amr Jamal in the fourth innings of a 130 total on the board when you're defending 130. I do not understand that at all. Complete brain fade moment. Complete like nonsensical. You know, the commentators are calling it blueprint captaincy, which is basically, oh, I know that A, B, and C are supposed to happen, so I will do A, B, and C, even though D is glaringly obvious to do. But I will stick to my A, B, Cs. And I think that was just like, what are you doing, Sean? This is completely opposite of what you've been representative of throughout this series. I don't understand what this is, but okay, I guess that's what you're going to do. And apart from that fourth inning in the last test match of the series that was already, 2-0, I think he's been a really good find. And I think I know he's older, he's 34, but I think at least for this WTC cycle, he should see it through. I think he's a genuine find. He's an attacking, aggressive captain. He leads from the front. He says what he's going to do. If he says he wants to play quote unquote hashtag the Pakistan way, he plays it like that. There's no ifs or buts about it. And I think the PCB is looking into this and being like, wow, we didn't even know this was going to happen. But okay, great. And, Shan Masood comes out with his head held high because he tried his best.
Yeah, it's the way he scored the runs that really impressed me. At a good strike rate, always looked to take the Aussie bowlers on. He loves to do that. What you said, the dab and run. Love to come down the track to Nathan Lyon. So yeah, a captain that says and does what he intends to and leading from the front. I would just want Sean to improve his fielding a bit. He's not a good fielder. And I think fielding is something that you can work on. You can be a good or bad bowler or batsman, and that's fine. But fielding is something, if you just work hard at it, you will eventually and inevitably get better at it. So happy that Sean did well. I was very critical of him going into this series because he was averaging 28, and I didn't really feel like his place in the team was cemented, but he's proven me wrong with a couple of really good innings he played that really impressed me. Again, he got really good starts. I want him to, going forward, convert these starts into big hundreds for Pakistan. Ultimately, that is what's going to matter. I think another debate that was settled in this whole series was Mohammad Rizwan. Did he end up as Pakistan's highest score?
Yes.
In the 2 tests he played, 4 innings. I think the whole Rizwan versus Sarfaraz debate is over. Rizwan is one of the best wicketkeeper batsmen the Pakistan has ever had. One of the best batsmen overall for Pakistan in Sena countries. And for me, it's the scenarios where he comes in and scores runs. I saw a whole stat on Twitter where it was like Pakistan is 80 for 5, 100 for 6. And he comes in and scores 85, 95, 50, 60. So Rizwan is a man of crisis. He is the best wicket keeper for Pakistan. More fit than Sarfaraz, more agile, scores runs at a better rate, takes on the bowlers, always has the intent to score runs. I think maybe the best of Sarfaraz Ahmed is behind him. The only way I can see Sarfaraz make a comeback is if you have the argument that you play Sarfaraz in Pakistan or in the subcontinent area and you've played Rizwan in Sena countries.
There is an argument already on the internet about that, where there's like, well, you said the argument is over. I think there's still a little murmur about playing Sarfaraz at least in Pakistan.
Well, in 10 months, he'll be 37. And I think Rizwan, because he's gone through the storm of playing in Sena countries, he deserves to have an easy home tour. Bangladesh is coming in 2 test matches, 4 innings, score a couple of hundreds, get your average back up, even though his average is 40 plus right now. So impressive from Rizwan. Other positives from Pakistan, I think, was just that, quick cameo from Saim, uppercutting Stark for a 6 over deep backward point. A big event that was sort of built up from the past few months was the retirement of a David Warner. He says goodbye to the test format.
He loses his bag, finds his bag, That's a whole drama in itself.
His baggy green cap, which is one of the most prized possessions for an Australian cricketer. Happy that he found it in the end, and you can see the patina it had grown over the years.
You were saying there's patina on the hat, but I genuinely think I felt like he wrestled a bear to get it back. I don't know where his bag was, but that hat has seen better days.
So much drama leading up. I wanted to ask you, how would you rate David Warner's career overall? He finishes his Test career with 112 matches, 8,786 runs, 26 hundreds, 37 50s. And this stat that sort of, for me, is the highlight of his Test career. And what sort of defines him is his strike rate. His strike rate in Test matches is 70.19, which is insane.
That just shows that he's always played with intent. He's never sort of molded into like an expectation of him. He always had a different set of rules for himself when he batted. He never gave in to the status quo or whatever the decorum was of Test cricket. He made it his own. And his career, not barred from controversy and not barred from drama itself, has been interesting and has been one filled with a lot of pain as a Pakistani fan. And I know you're looking over and looking at the shirt that we have on behind you. And yes, it's signed by David Warner, and we're lucky to get that signed because he's genuinely a class act. And I think we had Steve Smith on that as well somewhere. Were you able to get that?
I don't think so.
I remember we were trying to get him, but we weren't able to get that. But Warner is on there, and just goes to show like he's one of the greatest, and he's tried his best to maintain that. And will he go down as one of the greatest Australian openers in Test cricket? That's tough because there's a lot of people eyeing for that spot. And I feel like, Justin Langer would have something else to say about that. And
you said he would be in your all-time Australian 11, right?
Well, I was trying to, I said that off the whim, but then I thought about it. And who are the greatest Australian openers in Test? We have Hayden. We have
Justin
Langer. Who else we got?
Was Alan Border an opener?
I forget. See, that's just from, I know Gilchrist was in white ball, but Gilchrist was more 7-8 in red ball. So maybe there's the conversation definitely to be had. He's at the strike rate that he plays, the confidence that he has, the fear that he strikes in the bowlers, and the attitude that he has when he plays Test cricket. Maybe, for sure. Why not? But, he not only retires from Test cricket, Bashar, he retires from ODI cricket as well. And that's also, his contribution to ODI cricket is insane. He's a 2-time World Cup winner. He's at least one-time T20 World Cup winner,
World Test Championship winner.
World Test Championship winner. Like, he's done it all. He's conquered cricket. And if he wants to go out now and relax a little bit, I think he very well deserves it. He's been a class act, like we've said, on the other side, as someone who's always has supported the team that he's played against. We've had many a times where we drop him and he goes on and scores a 335, and we're just like, wow. I guess that was the defining factor between the two sides. So glad to see him go as a Pakistani fan, but kudos, congratulations to him.
He scored a triple century against Pakistan. He scored 800 in the first session against Pakistan. He loves playing against Pakistan. The one stat that for me is a bit worrisome is that he has 26 Test match hundreds, and I reckon, I don't reckon, but factually, 20 of his 2600s have been in Australia. So he's sort of a hometown bully, and he struggles everywhere else. Averages 26 in England, 21 in India, no hundreds in either of these countries. 13 average in New Zealand.
What does he average in Pakistan?
In Pakistan, averages 33, 250s, no 100.
Okay, not bad. He had a little bit of a battle there with Sajid Khan. And I think it stems back to that series where Australia came to Pakistan and Sajid Khan had him bowled, I think, the first or second over. And that was a good battle to enjoy. But nonetheless, Warner won this thing. The battle is won. I don't know what else to tell you.
Sajid and Warner, they go way back. What did you think of the Pakistan cricket team gifting Babar Azam's signed shirt to David Warner? Because India did a similar thing where they gifted Virat Kohli's shirt to Dean Elgar, who was also retiring. So it seems like a season of left-handed openers retiring.
And the subcontinent teams giving them gifts. I think it was a nice gesture. I think it was cute. And I think Shan Masood has sort of set that standard for Pakistan for being cute with the Christmas gifts and the hugs and the guard of honors, 2 guard of honors for David Warner in this series. I think it was nice. I think it was fitting that it was Babar Azam's jersey. I think there's something to say about that. That even though Babar may not be performing to the potential that he has, everybody still regards him as the greatest. And, Shan Masood giving Babar's jersey over, just like Rohit Sharma gave Virat's jersey over to Dean Elgar, I think that says a lot of where Pakistan put Babar and what esteem he's at. And just it's up to him to rise up to that occasion.
Well said. I think just a few last points going forward. Pakistan's next test, like you mentioned, is in about 8-9 months. Pakistan should really improve their fielding. They've got to improve their batting in Sena countries, specifically where they see bouncy pitches. And I think you can create similar pitches in Pakistan. There's this ground in Islamabad called the Diamond Cricket Ground. It's said to be the most bounciest pitch in Pakistan. Maybe a camp there would have been helpful versus a camp in the Gaddafi Stadium. Hate that name. I don't know why.
It's the worst.
They gotta
Generally
change
the worst.
that. So yeah, I think a decent series overall would have been really great if we had sneaked that win, but we got to wait for another 4 years for Pakistan to go to Australia.
I think that's very flattering of you to think this is a decent series. I think it was a horrible series. It's a 3-0. Why would we call this decent?
I'm such a cynic and a pessimist where my expectations were here.
And yet you still think this was a decent series.
Because they performed till here.
The optimist is showing it. Yeah. The optimist is leaking out.
I'm good. And also Amar Jamal, man.
Good for him. I think it was a beast. It was a good player of the match for him. I think kudos to Cricket Australia to go out and give him that. I think, to be honest, nobody else from Australia did do anything spectacular in this game. Pakistan should have won this, if I'm being very honest. But, whatever. I think
that over from Hazelwood. Wicket dot,
God.
wicket. Wow.
Looking like a wow, eh?
Looking like a wow.
Looking like a wow. I think the next match is against New Zealand in literally a week's time. I don't know if we'll be able to watch it. It's at 2:10 a.m. on a work day. So, tough for that. But there are a few games that are at 8 p.m. If you guys are tuning in, I think you should know that we will be streaming at least one of those. There's a 5th T20I, Bashar, on Saturday, January 20th at 8 p.m. We might be streaming that. So keep an eye out on that. Bashar, am I right with that?
100%. Yeah, we're looking forward to streaming at least one of those matches that start at 8 p.m. here.
Because that's one positive that we had from this test series. We had a lot of fun streaming the second MCG test, the Boxing Day, where Pakistan was almost about to chase it down. Not really. But we've kind of had a knack of streaming now, and you can expect that a lot from us. If you guys want to follow us on YouTube, please subscribe, follow us there. And if you guys are listening on Spotify, you can go hop over to the YouTube app on your phone and like and subscribe us there. And I think, roundabout good series coverage. I think we hit all the points that we wanted to hit. If you guys wanted to join our subscribed community, you can. If you guys want to go a step further and support us monetarily, you can join our Patreon, where we give you access to special episodes, question and answers, monthly video calls, etc., and future merch. Whenever we drop that, will be first given to the Patreon fan club. And then obviously the Discord server is in the description below as well. Free of charge. You can follow us there. Enjoy the community. We're at 991 members, Bashar, and I really want to hit the 1,000 mark ASAP. And I think that's around about it from us. Is there anything else you want to touch on before we leave, Bashar?
No, I think that covers everything. Thank you guys for listening, and we'll see you very soon in another episode.
Yeah. Cheers.